I'd like to call the meeting to order. We're going to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance. Going to do roll call. Commissioner Stoll. You can't. Okay. It's not do I need to? Is this on now? Can you hear me now? Yep. Can you hear me now? Okay. Commissioner Kirk.
Hey.
Commissioner Barlow.
Here.
Barlow, thanks. Commissioner Judson.
Here.
Commissioner Berazabetia.
Yes.
Commissioner Chena. Commissioner Dodson. Commissioner Harrington. Commissioner Kleeman.
Here.
Commissioner Curry.
Here.
Thank you. Okay. First of all, I'd like to welcome the members of the audience, and I'd like to ask for a motion to approve the agenda. Commissioner Judson, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Commissioner Beresbetia seconds it. Any discussion of the agenda? All in favor? Great. It's now time for public comment. Are there any signatures on the list? Good.
Nobody wants to talk.
Nobody wants to talk. All right, last chance. All right. The next item on the agenda is board reflections. Typically, we don't have those unless they're in response, but are there any comments from the board? Okay. So the board report is very short tonight. First of all, I'd like to introduce our newest student board representative, Jake Bucci. Welcome, Jake. And I'd like to ask you, Jake, if you would just say a few words about yourself and introduce yourself generally.
I'm Jake Bucci. I'm a junior at VHS, so that's thank you.
Great. Well, welcome. Welcome. So just a couple of things with regard to the board report. I want to just thank all of the board members who are going to attend the training for the VSBA, VSA training at Lake Maury. Thank you for taking your time to do that. I also wanted to pass on thanks of the board publicly to Howard Smith for his service to Burlington School District, which has just been about a year ago that he took over as interim superintendent and did a great job with the staff of the district to really set us on a path of financial stability and bring some cohesion to us after a period of time. So I wanted to just publicly thank him for that. So let me turn it over now to the superintendent's report.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Sabino. I'll ask Director Lowry to come and join me. Well, one of the first items is around our budget progress and calendar. And you have seen a draft previously of the process, and we're going to sort of outline what the next steps are, and then I'm going to, after Director Lowry has finished the outline, just share with you some of the things we're considering in terms of moving forward with this process and to engage the community.
So hopefully everyone here is resonating. I can't tell. Okay, well, great. So we made a few revisions to the schedule to reflect kind of where we are in the process right now and some of the things that that Superintendent Obey thought ought to be included in this process. And so I want to just draw your attention to the October 20th date that is that talks about discussion of the community consultation process at the Finance Committee meeting. So that's the meeting next week. And then that's going to be followed in the first week of November by 2 budget consultation forums in the community. And those actually have been scheduled for, look on my schedule here, but I believe it's, let me look it up real quick.
You should probably bring your
Folks
name
know the
and sign
exact
in.
date.
That's too rep.
Okay. The 4th and the 5th, they're going to be at 6:30 p.m. The event on the 4th is at BHS, and the event on the 5th is at the Sustainability Academy. And there'll be more publication of this information coming out. So, so that's the budget community consultation forums, and then we revise it to show November 9th through 20th, reflecting the internal budget development process, meetings, discussions, incorporating feedback from the forums, that sort of thing. The 24th proposal to the Finance Committee, and then that kind of gets us back on track with the schedule that you have seen before, ultimately resulting, of course, in the March budget vote.
Nate, can I just add one thing?
Sure.
The meeting on the 20th is actually a joint meeting
Oh,
of
good point.
Finance and ITC, just in case people are interested in coming and hearing everything. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any questions for clarification before I add?
Yes, I would like to know more about the online, what was it?
Response mechanism?
Yeah, online response mechanism.
Okay, so I think that's my segue to
Yep.
jump into.
Sure.
So one of the things we've been having conversations around is how can we engage the community in a different way to reach out to more individuals, inclusive of our parents, but also others who are very much interested in the school district and and how our students move forward and the supports we have. So we've started to form some partnerships with some of the media outlets actually, and we're engaged in different ways of reaching out through social media, through some electronic forums where we can have access for parents, community to give contributions. So that way we're not restricted by the forums that we will have. We'll have like face-to-face forums where we'll have an opportunity to, I think first of all, one of the things we have to do is give information around the budget process and how it connects with some of the changes legislation around the tax, so people have a bit of an understanding around that, and then give them an opportunity to give information. So one of the things that I'm trying to frame this opportunity is really around consultation. That I think people might have been most familiar with in the past, information sessions when you attend and you say, this is what's happening and this is the budget and what do you think? Whereas we're starting from the ground up where we're saying, this is what we have to do, this is how the tax correlates to what the big task of the board needs to do. Let's hear your best thinking now so we can consider that as we move forward. So people have an opportunity to give some input at the beginning, and they may have some great ideas in terms of what we're considering that may help us. And then we go through that process. And so we want to have some various vehicles that people can have access to contribute to this through electronic means and other things like that. And then eventually at some point we'll do the information piece, right? In terms of sharing out to the community that yes, remember we had that consultation, we gathered some information, we've talked to these groups, we've had the board engage, and this is what we're going forward with first. So hopefully people feel that they've had the right information to give some good suggestions and then have contributed some thoughtful pieces for us to consider as we develop a budget that we will have to work with for the following year. So, Nate and I will be giving you updates at the committee meetings of our progress, and we may even have some technological pieces done that we could share with you at that point. They're not ready yet, but we'll be able to share some of that with you. Questions? No? Okay. So moving on to the next item is around training. We've had a few conversations at the board level, and the board is very much interested in receiving different training opportunities to build your capacity as board members. The board had asked me to look into the Act 46 training, in particular, the piece around the tax and the impact, because the consolidation doesn't really impact us directly. We did make contact with, and the gentleman's name is Paul. I can't remember the organization off the top of my head, but they are going around the state giving in-service and workshops on Act 46, and I have a couple of dates that are available for us. I'm just want to know what's the best vehicle to send it to the board to decide. I know previously we had some conversation about doing the policy governance or do another committee meeting or something like that, but we have some dates in November that could be available to us. So I'm just looking for some direction in terms of how you want me to share that information so you can make a decision around when would be a best time for everyone to be accessible.
Let me just suggest policy and governance has handled some of this, and maybe the best vehicle would be to send those dates to Commissioner Curry, and she can facilitate kind of a doodle poll or whatever it would take in order to organize that. Would that be okay?
Sure.
Okay, good.
I think that was the Public Assets Institute. Was that
That's what it
policy
was.
one from the
Yes, it
Public
was,
Assets
yes.
Institute?
And they've been doing a lot of work around this already, so we're fortunate that they're making themselves available for us. So, yep.
Superintendent Obeng, can you just give us a vague idea of when those dates are roughly? Are we talking about mid-November or early November?
Yeah, we're talking early November.
Okay.
Early November. I think I had a date in early December as well too, but the dates are mostly early November for us.
And the length of the training?
Well, it's up to us, but
I see.
right now I pitched it as at least a 2-hour
Okay.
within the time frame, because I know you want to do it within a curriculum period, so that would be the time frame. And the price is right too.
What, zero?
No, not 2. That's right.
Great. Did any other questions or comments on that? Okay.
Okay.
Commissioner Stoll? Just would want to encourage us to try and do it as soon as possible, because if you look at our calendar, if we push it towards the end of November, we're not going to get the full benefit of it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's a way for us to look at those early dates.
Yeah, I'll push, because I kind of wanted to kind of get direction around, because you have the conversation, when do you want it, and I wasn't sure which meeting, so I can hold tight on the early November and see if there's maybe a late October even that might work if we want it sooner than later.
Commissioner Jensen?
Our late October meeting has the maybe that's not, are we, with Val Gardner?
Yeah, why don't we sort out, we'll leave it to policy and governance,
Okay.
and they can help us sort out the scheduling. Thanks.
Okay. So the next item under training was the board had asked me to look into an opportunity for equity diversity training. And so looking around in terms of what would be most appropriate for the board, because I felt that we needed some general equity training, but also something that would focus really on students and classroom instruction. So that would give you some context in terms of what we should be doing in the classrooms and how that helps at the board level in terms of what we support moving forward. At the same time, wanted an opportunity that's engaging. I didn't think the best style of learning for us would be to just listen to a dissertation around equity. I could do that, but so I've actually reached out and have a number of dates, which I'll also pass on, that we can do. The only thing I needed to sort of reconcile with the board is I really feel strongly that we should dedicate a full day training in order to do the type of work I think is needed to have you walk away with the level of understanding, rather than just a quick PowerPoint type thing. So I'm asking that we do something that'll go from 9 to 12, we have a break, and then we go till like 2:30. So I will send that to, not sure which committee would want to manage that.
I think it might be just maybe useful to have policy and governance handle all of that and handle that scheduling.
Okay.
Good.
Okay, good. And the training that I have is someone who I've worked with before and is very familiar with many of the school districts. A professor that works at the university level has worked in the States and has worked in Canada as well too. And I've had this individual work in schools, so they have that school level of understanding. And so they're very accommodating. So if we want to even look at a Saturday, if people can't do that, not that I want to take you away from your families, but it would have to be a full day. So just to sort of forewarn you that that's coming. Okay. The last thing I think I would say is I know that Chair Porter had shared with all board members around the VCA opportunity, the conference coming up, and I think we've got maybe 3 or 4 individuals going. And if it's not too late, if you're still interested, let me know. It's October 23rd. It's coming up soon. So if anyone at the last minute feels like they can spare the day or two, you don't have to commit to the whole 2 days, but it's just an opportunity there for you as well too. So that reason why I'm sharing that, because that opportunity also has there's a workshop in it that deals with policy governance. And I know that we haven't decided on it yet, but people want to find out as much as possible. So there's another opportunity to look on that. So if you're interested, just shoot me a note, and we'll make sure that we get you registered for part of the day or a full day or the 2 days, whatever that's feasible for you. Okay. Any questions on training? I think I've come back with all the items that the board had asked on that. So if there's something that I missed, just let me know, and I'd be happy to find more training for you. The next item that I have is around the 100-day plan. So yeah, the 100-day plan was launched several weeks ago, and just as a status report for you, it's gone quite well. I've had numerous amount of communication, people who are interested in sharing with me different aspects of the district and giving me insights around that. I'm trying to be as selective as possible to gather as much, but at the same time, I wanted to hear all voices, both good and challenging as well too, because I think we need to understand the complexity of the challenges in order to negate them as we move forward. Lots of conversations with community organizations. I've almost gone through most of the staff, senior directors, supervisors, and those one-on-one conversations have been very helpful in terms of getting me up to speed, but also giving some insights in terms of what the needs are, the system, and where some of our strengths are. And I'm already starting to identify some trends, and that's what I hope. I know I know that will come through in terms of, once I've completed this process, some trends that I can share with you and that we can use as we start on the road of our multi-year planning. The other strategies I've used thus far is staff group conversations and also specific surveys. So I've sent a survey to all staff. So that includes not just teachers, but support staff, all departments. And I've given them an opportunity to share with me some details around their department specifically, but also as a district as a whole, right? And I've kind of framed that in a way that, I want to hear some of the challenges, but I also want your contributions in terms of giving me some good ideas of what you think we can do to move forward, right? In terms of, and people have been very responsive. As I checked just before I came into the board meeting, I had, I think, about 196 responses in it's been a few days, so that's pretty good in terms of the response rate. And people are emailing me, but don't email me if you're listening. Just send it to the response, but it just shows you the eagerness of people who want to contribute to that. Part of the 100-day plan is also establish a transition advisory, and some of you received the invitation to be on that advisory, and I've tried to get representation from the community. So we've got some staff that are on the committee. We've got commissioners on the committee. We've got city councilors, the mayor on the committee. We've got the police chief on the committee, and we've got executive directors of some of our community agencies, in particular the refugee settlement agencies, to be on that committee. And so I'm hoping to use that as a sounding board early on to have them examine the 100-day plan and to fill in the gaps and maybe make other connections to people who I need to talk to in terms of understanding what our needs are. But also, once again, tell me give me some ideas in terms of what you think would help in terms of moving forward. So that's the transition advisory, and I'll see some of you there, and that's actually this week, so we'll get a chance to have that together. Lastly, kind of connects to number D, is around the community forums. So we've established 3 community forums for parents and community to come out, and hopefully that's an opportunity for me to sort of give a quick introduction of who I am and a little bit about vision, and then engage parents in some of the things that they feel we could do that would help us make us better. But also, the challenge I'm going to be asking is around some of the things that we may need to stop doing. Because as we move into the budget phase and we start doing our planning, we're going to have to make some of those decisions and connect that to some of the curricular goals that we have. And I'd be interested to hear on the front end some of the stop. I think I need to say that publicly and give it to people, because when I know from experience, when you often have these kind of forums and you ask people, give me your ideas, they give you more ideas and lots of great things, but doesn't mean we can operationalize them and resource them. So it's like, okay, well, think about what you're giving me, but that means we may have to take something out or do something differently. So I want people to kind of really think about that. But also in my conversations with smaller cohorts of parents through PTOs or just other groups, there have been some local type issues that they've shared. And so I'd be interested to hear from them in that forum and be able to get some training around that. I've also in the process of developing a parent survey that'll go with that too. So I'm trying to devise a strategy that has multiple avenues for people to connect, right? So we'll have something at the schools as well too, that they can pick up a piece of paper and put something down. So everyone has an opportunity at some level to communicate. One of the pieces I want to really articulate, though, that we are inviting everyone in the community, and so in preparation for that, we've established translators and interpreters. We've accessed our multicultural liaisons to be there. And we're also open to child minding for parents who need child minding during the opportunity. So there's no excuse not to come out and give your best thoughts to the superintendent. So, okay.
Superintendent, would you mind repeating the dates of that? I know you sent that out, but just to kind of refresh people's memory, would you happen to have that?
I don't have it on
Okay.
wait, it's in the pile of paper here, but you know what? I will maybe send it to the recorder for the minutes,
That would be great.
and we can have that.
Thanks.
Okay.
I just had one question, and just another one, but yeah, hello. I had one quick question, Superintendent Bang. I like your point about community forums. People have an opportunity to speak to you about what they want put in, but you're also requesting some feedback on what they're willing to forego. And you began, I think you may be hitting here with operationalizing. Thank you. Operationalizing board goals, but it seems like it would be helpful if there was some public presentation of the prioritization, because I think it would be helpful if people, when they gave the feedback, were working within those parameters, right? Because there might be things that people are like, well, just get rid of this. But then it'd be helpful to be able to remind them, well, we did say that's priority, so if you could help us understand how we'll address this priority need without that resource.
Okay.
So
So let
that
me
there's
make a clear
conversation.
distinction, because I know this is what can be confusing too. The community forums is for me to gather information about going forward. So some of that information will most likely be used in the multi-year planning phase, right? So this is what we've heard from the community, so we can use that, because I don't want to really rush into it, because we're started the budget process already. So I don't want to say, be really quick, but that information is going to be part of that piece. Similarly, you're right though, in the budget consultation, that will be a question that will be asked in terms of, okay, if we had to go somewhere, where are we going to go for this year? But I also want the visionary thoughts from the community in terms of, where do you see us in 3 years? Where would you like to see if your child would graduate in 3 years? What would you like to see them have when they leave? And so what do we need to do to get there? So I'll try to make a clear distinction when I speak with the community in terms of the purpose of their feedback, right? So they know that's going to contribute to the multi-year plan and give them thinking around work. And then when in the budget piece, we'll be clear around, yes, we're dealing with this year's budget, and this is what we're going to do. So try to make those distinctions so people can give the authentic feedback for the moment at the time. So thanks for that question, though, because if you had that, then somebody else would have.
Commissioner Stoll?
Superintendent O'Bank, could you just elaborate a little bit more on the role of the advisory committee? And in particular, are those open meetings for the public to attend? How are you going to be feeding back that information?
Yeah, well, I haven't really thought a great deal whether if it was open or not. I'm indifferent to that at this point. I just wanted to identify some people who, without having a room full of people, because it was challenging actually to narrow the numbers down. So I'm really looking at them giving me feedback personally in terms of advice around what they see and what they think. I'm not sure how much of that will be interesting to the general public, but I'm sure there'll be nuggets of that I'll be able to incorporate into my report of the 100-day that I can share that, some of these thoughts came from the advisory and it was reflective of what they heard in the community as well. And that's partly why the diversity of representation is that I'm hoping they're coming from different segments of our community, so they can say, well, this is what I'm hearing in my community, this is what I think, this is what I believe. So I'll reflect it in that format.
Have you used an advisory committee like this before? I'm asking because we talked at length in the Finance Committee at one point about having a financial advisory committee and ultimately decided not to go forward with that. I think it's a great idea.
I think there's a distinction because this is an ad hoc committee, right? There's an end date, so people know that they're there to contribute to a specific thing, and it's the purpose I've designed it for is for this immediate use, right? So if you're looking at an advisory for something, a board initiative, which is long-term, then I think you'd have to look at the different parameters. I have had experience with board-level advisory committees, and my experience is you really need to define the purpose and the mandate clearly in terms of what supports you're asking for. So you really need to know why you're asking them, because it can shift, and then you're spending time dealing with other things rather than the purpose that you've initiated for.
Thank you.
Commissioner Curry?
I just wanted to reflect on the Commissioner Stoll's comment about the Finance Committee's advisory committee. When we actually passed a board motion way back when, enabling any committee to form an advisory committee to assist it, and the Diversity and Equity Committee actually did form an advisory committee, or ask the interim superintendent to look at that as an option for informing the work that the committee was doing. Ultimately, with the transition to a permanent superintendent, that may or may not come to be, but the motion specifically was around board committees creating advisory committees, and I know the Finance Committee suspended that idea. But I think the Superintendent Advisory Committee isn't something that necessarily fell under that motion per se, or that discussion.
Thanks.
Any questions on that topic? No? Okay, so E is the optimization of the board goals. So the board, month ago, I think it was, approved some big goals for us, and so what we're in the process of doing, we've taken those goals and I've started having conversations with staff. And thank you, by the way, for those goals. Many of them align very well with some of the things that we were feeling were priority areas where we needed to go. At the same time, I wanted to put it operationalize it into a framework that we know that we can implement in a way that, one, we can develop some really good strategies around it, and also monitor the progress in terms of indicators, so we can sort of do a reporting based on the plan for those goals. And a number of those goals that were identified were actually really like strategies or actions or to-dos. So we're looking at how do we reframe that and put that into a plan but it's not the main goal, and maybe there's a broader concept that we have. So I'm sharing that with you now because as I'm coming to committee meetings over October, I want to flesh that out a little bit and give you a visual in terms of what it looks like and what you think about that. And I think it will help us in terms of looking at some sort of governance structure. It could be a sort of a midterm transition as we look at that to start working with our committees that can help us on some of the high-level, board-level decision-making that that could be happening, that the board can get their teeth into. So I'm hoping, I am planning to come to the committee meetings and share our progress so far with it, and then I'm hoping that we've had enough discussion that I can bring something back to the board table in November with the board plan with some detailed steps and monitoring pieces that you can see that this is how we're going to do it. And that kind of sort of melds well with the multi-year plan piece that I've been talking about. So that kind of connects also with one of the things that I've been talking with staff about is the long-range multi-year plan and developing a systemic approach that really defines what our work is and where we can get leadership from the board in doing that. So I've had a conversation with Partnership for Change, Nellie May, actually, leadership around what's happening in our district and where we're going, where we want to go. And a lot of the things we talked about in terms of systemic change, it really resonated with them. And so they've empowered me to fund us with some resources, some dollars, cha-ching, some money, to help us in moving forward around the, it might be around the policy governance piece, it might be around developing a strategic plan. So my hope is that once I have all these funds secured, which will come at no cost to this table, then we'll be able to move forward, and by the spring we'll get into the multi-year planning piece so we can give some feedback around how we do some long-term planning, which will also help us in the restructuring of our budget process, right? So we have the plan coming before the budget, right? So then we have the plan, and we can say, okay, now we got to do a budget to fit the plan. So things are kind of falling in place nicely. I'm knocking on wood, you know. So I'll share more with you at the committee meetings in terms of our next steps, and we'll move forward with that.
Superintendent O'Bank, could I ask you, when you say multi-year plan, what are you thinking of, like a 3 to 5 year range? What's the
Yes, exactly.
timeframe?
A 3 to 5 year range, I think, and then we'll leave that up to the board to make a final decision on. I mean, those are the board level decisions that you'll have to make in terms of. But I think that's a prudent step to take, considering the things that, the many things that we want to do. That we really do have to prioritize and be able to chunk things and have a long range, some long range goals, so we can have some leading and lagging indicators that'll get us to the final product that we want. So I know it's going to take a little bit to get there in terms of our systemic understanding of what we're doing, but I think this step will help us understand a little bit better, and then, you know, as we get more training and stuff, we'll be able to get to a place where everybody's saying, yeah, this is it. And I'm really looking at, you know, by the fall, we have a really nice, shiny plan that we can give to the public. We can post it up on our websites, and we can speak to the critical pieces very clearly, and people understand that, and then it gives us a platform to talk to the community around, this is what we're doing, this is where we want to go, this is where we need your support.
Thank you. Thanks.
Okay, any questions on that? No? Okay, so last but not least, thanks once again for everyone who was able to, I know everyone gave support to come out to Edmonds to see the elevator and the nice shiny new washrooms. We have been able to secure some times for the board to come and have a tour and see that. So I can share that with you now, or would you like me to send that to policy governance as well?
I think it makes sense perhaps to just, you know, kind of aggregate it all and send it out.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay, I could keep talking, but I know we're only here for a few hours, so that's the end of the report.
Well, thank you very much for that report. It's great to have you here. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? I'm sorry, was that Susan Marie? Uh-huh. And David Kirk Commissioner Kirk seconded it. Thanks for discussion. Are there any questions or a discussion about the consent agenda? Then can we have a vote for it? All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Passes unanimously. Great. So let's go on to committee reports. Commissioner Dodson, curriculum.
Certainly. Hello. I don't know if this is working. Can people hear me? Good. So we meet on the second Tuesday right before this full board meeting. So we just finished our meeting and we covered a good amount of ground. One thing that came up in public comment, it was not on the agenda per se, but I think it's worth mentioning, is there has been a discussion around the elimination of Algebra 1 at Edmonds Middle School. And really the upshot of that is some parents came to discuss that, and the appropriate channel for that is being pursued. That individual is meeting with Bonnie Johnson-Aiton, the principal at Edmonds, and Victor Prusak from central office, and they will continue that, and then based on that meeting, perhaps they'll need to move up to Director Stephanie Phillips. But at this point, that really is an operational issue at the school level. So I just thought it was worthy of mentioning that was part of the discussion, but that's where that is. We had a conversation about kindergarten supports. This is ongoing. This is part of the para deployment model in the district, and there are not dedicated paras per kindergarten classroom, but there has been prioritization of literacy and math specialists, and that plan is unfolding this year, so we're watching it. So there was a conversation about what are the metrics we're going to put in place, the goals that we'll set, and the metrics for measuring progress about that, and just sort of a continued monitoring of how we're doing. But I think the important thing is the conversation isn't really about kindergarten support. The conversation is about kindergarten academic success. And if additional supports are part of that, then that's what's necessary. But the goal is for our kindergartens to be successful. So we're trying to keep the eye on that prize. We had a conversation, very important conversation about Act 166, Universal Pre-K. Just the beginning of that. Diane Langston and Dylan McNamara reported on that, and they thought it was very important, and it is for the board to understand that just in order to meet the mandates, which is around funding, I'm not going to remember the exact figures, but I think we spend around $2,200 per student currently. The guideline or mandate, I think, of the act is $3,000. So there's that gap, and then there's a gap of students. Right now, we serve a certain number of students, and it's a bit challenging to get the exact number, but I think the estimate was between 130 to maybe 170 that aren't being met, and then what the cost would be associated with that, with meeting additional, because we already have a fairly extensive pre-K, but it's not universal for all that would want it. So to come back to the board with those monetary sort of impacts, in addition to all the sort of policy issues that we might come up around that. And I believe that was a little bit of a report out on the program of using psychologists and social workers, et cetera. Dylan spoke a little bit about that, but it's pretty early. We're a month and a half into school, so not a great deal to report, except it's happening. But what the impact is isn't really clear yet. I think that's it. Any questions?
Any comments or questions?
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Chena, give a report on diversity and equity.
Check, hello. It's time for the diversity and equity report. I'm just loading my email to remind me.
Yours is working.
This one's really loud. I'm just going to aim this at me from there. Oops.
Just turned yours up.
Oh.
There you go.
Okay. Hello.
Yep, we got you. There you go.
Hello. So, the Diversity and Equity Committee has been busy talking about a lot of different important issues in our district, and the one specific theme is discipline. actually in our last meeting, discipline took up a lot of time. We heard from Jay Diaz from Vermont Legal Aid, and he talked a lot about the nationwide trends happening in schools around discipline, and about the idea of eliminating suspensions and creating a wraparound response to behavioral and emotional issues when students have challenges that interrupt their education, making sure that no student is excommunicated from the schools or kicked out or feels rejected, but rather has a response that's tailored to the situation to help make sure they continue their academic achievement and also get help with the emotional behavioral issues that are interfering with their success. So that was really great to hear Jay Diaz talk about what research is showing us and examples of what's happening around the country, and it was really hopeful. And our new superintendent, Yao Bang, has experience that he shared with success centers in his district, and so it was really a hopeful discussion that despite there might be we might be in a period of transition, that our nation's education system is moving in this direction that will create greater equity, because hopefully no student will feel rejected by the system when they have challenges. I probably said more than I meant to in that, but I'm trying to be brief. We also heard from Parents and Youth for Change, and I think the highlight of that was hearing a parent and a youth give their personal experience with challenges with discipline in our school system, and so we got to hear a bit about the challenges real people have faced, and ideas they have about what might work better. So that was really helpful. We also got an update on the Equity, Inclusion Report and Climate Survey. This is the area that'll be harder for me to talk about but I think if I had to summarize it, Stephanie could help me. One of them they're both being worked on, right? So there's data that we've collected that's being processed, and then there's plans being made for the next round. I think that's a simple way to put it. We weren't given any reports yet, just sort of where we're at, where the progress of the process is. And also, specific discipline data was not available, but we were told we'll have it next month. So we're going to be looking at data of the discipline in our district and just kind of understanding trends and areas where there might be challenges and areas where there might be success, and just kind of reviewing what's going on.
Great, thank you. Any questions or comments? Just Superintendent Obey?
Clarifications around the testing. Testing. Okay, thank you. Just point for clarification that around some of the data deliverables, one of the challenges is that we've got a new system in August, and so staff are implementing the new system, and they've been working on report cards, doing the programming for that. So as soon as they're done with that, then the other pieces. So I know that one of the suspension data pieces we were going to share, we probably won't get that until maybe December. So when it comes, it'll come for 3 months altogether once we have that. So just so you're not expecting it next month.
Any other questions or comments for the Diversity and Equity Committee? Great, thank you, Commissioner Chena. Commissioner Curry on Policy and Governance?
Thanks. So we discussed 3 specific things, the first one of which was my task that I forgot to do, and that is to send around a spreadsheet for everybody to sign up for CCTV Commissioner's Corner. So I haven't done that yet, but I will. So there is one coming up the first Thursday in November. So I'll do that one if nobody else can do it. So secondly, we talked about in, I think it was July, anyway, because of the summer vacation schedule, we didn't have a full committee meeting in August or July, I'm not sure. But in any case, we talked about the chair of the Town of Essex School Board came to talk with us about policy governance, and she spent over an hour. It was extremely informative, and so we discussed that meeting, and then we talked about the next steps, and we agreed that we would provide an informational session essentially it would normally be our next meeting, but we realized that some of the board attended a training last spring on policy governance. Some of the board is attending a training this coming Thursday on policy governance. So this will be kind of the way to allow any other board members who have not been able to go to Montpelier or Lake Maury to get the information they need. But it's really the last opportunity to do this because it's getting very busy, and I think we're going to want to have everybody informed about what policy governance is and what's involved in making the transition to policy governance in order for people to make an informed decision about whether we want to move to policy governance. So we're going to be doing that next Tuesday, the 27th, from 6:30 to 8 p.m. with a policy governance consultant named Michael Healy, who works all over the country. He has worked with some school districts. He's excellent, and he will be just providing a very kind of general introductory session and answering questions. So it'll be very informal, and we'll have an hour of our policy committee meeting, and then we'll do the training for an hour and a half. The other thing we've been working on is coming up with a design for superintendent evaluation and a format, and we talked about, we moved forward quite a bit because two of our committee members, Anne and Susan Marie, volunteered to really pull that together and solidify the details of the evaluation format. And so they've completed a first draft, and we're hoping to discuss that and really try to finalize things at our next meeting before we get it out to the full board for everybody to take a look at. So those are the most significant things at the committee meeting. Are there any questions or anything I forgot other committee members can remind me of?
Is this on?
No, it's not on. Is someone else's on? I don't think I did.
Is Jake's on? Oh, well, just in interest of people watching on TV at home, or perhaps people in the audience, I'd never heard of policy governance before becoming a board member, so just a point of clarification for anyone who may not be familiar with the term, that it's a system of organizing and running a board that is aimed at clarifying the relationship, the roles and responsibilities of the board versus the executives, professional staff of an organization. So as what we're talking about is having the board make an informed decision about whether or not the board wishes to adopt a different way of governing than our current large set of policies currently works. So just a little bit of background.
Commissioner Burke, ITC.
So ITC was fairly uneventful, except for we finished admins, which is a positive thing. Yay. We sold Murray House. Yay. And we actually got the check. And we're still working on Horizons, and on top, the situation for that is still not really clear. We're working on a long-term plan for the district on infrastructure and making sure, and finance and ITC are looking at combining the two committees to one because of overlap, and to make us work a little cleaner, smoother, and go over the same thing a lot less. So our meetings are going to be a little longer. We're having our first truly joint meeting next month, and they're gonna run a little longer, but there's only going to be one instead of two. This month. So really, that's ITC. Everything else is in the minutes, which are not very long. Thanks.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Commissioner Kirk? Commissioner Stoll, Finance.
Most of the work that the committee's been doing, Superintendent Obang and Director Lavery already went over. We've been talking about ensuring that our schedule will make sure that we meet all the appropriate deadlines. I did want to invite people who are interested in talking in a little more detail about the budget process to come to our meeting next Tuesday. We are going to have a more detailed discussion about what those community forums will look like. So if you want to have input on that, please come. Otherwise, the only thing that I wanted to highlight is one of the issues we've been talking about is ways to make the budget more transparent. And over the last couple of meetings, we've talked about the need to post our budget information on our website, which is something that the city does quite well. So we have been working on that, and we're hopefully going to start with fiscal year 16, the upcoming year. And my hope is that we will have something on the website. In fact, I believe we will in the next couple of weeks. So again, it's not going to be totally detailed, but it's going to allow the public to look at our website and see where we are financially. And that's a big step forward. And then the last thing is just to mention that this is the time of year where we're going to be getting our audit for this last year. The auditors have been working, and we will be getting an audit report at the Finance Committee meeting next week, Finance ITC. We're going to talk about how exactly we want to get that information. In the past, it's come as part of a Finance Committee meeting, but this year we may decide to have an extra meeting just because there's so much going on in finance these days. So that will be upcoming. And once we get that information, then we will be able to close out the books on fiscal year 15. So we're looking at, I believe, end of November to be able to get that. That's
Thank
it.
you. Typically, this is board deliberations, but I'm very happy to make an exception, and please feel free to ask a question.
Sorry.
That's okay. Would you mind standing and just, indicate your name?
Hi, I'm Molly Walsh, reporter at 7 Days. I was wondering if the board knows whether there was a deficit for last fiscal year or not, or what your best estimate is for the members of the public who are, looking forward to the coming budget season.
I'm going to defer to Superintendent O'Bang.
Did you hear that, or?
Yeah, we did hear it.
Okay.
So the question was whether there was a budget deficit for 15, right?
Uh-huh, yep.
So I'll have Director Randy's been working on this, so he'll give us an update.
Thanks. So I'm just curious to know, Molly, did you get my email response to your question?
I did, yeah.
Okay.
I just
Was it confusing or?
Yeah, because I just knew from past years there was often an estimate of where the district finished out, and I wondered if you had communicated that to the Finance Committee, and if you could just share whatever you communicated to them with the public. Or
Yeah,
just
so as
tell the
I,
public what meeting that was discussed at.
As I indicated to the board, the Finance Committee on multiple occasions, and as I wrote to you in the email, at this point we have not shared any specific figures on the fiscal 15 year-end close, and we are being deliberately cautious about that because there is a history that I'm familiar with, at least a brief history of some significant year-end adjustments. So we just want to, out of an abundance of caution, make sure that we've had the opportunity to work through all of those. And so the guidance that we've been sharing with folks to date is that we are intending to wait for the audit to release those figures, although if we find, at a meeting, just before that happens that we're able to provide some kind of more detailed information, we'll do that. And it is, I will be providing an update at the Finance Committee meeting next week, but just so folks understand, that update will not mean that we're coming out with any sort of numbers.
Thank you. Thanks. Great. Any other questions or comments from the board on the Finance Committee? Report?
Nate, can you just clarify the fact of the matter is that we did go beyond the voted amount, but we did not go over.
Could
we're
I,
not in the,
I just want to
we're
call
not in
point
the
of order.
red as.
I think that really is appropriately discussed. I realize the question was asked, but we really have to wait for the audit report, and I think the most appropriate place for that is at the Finance Committee meeting next week.
But
We'll have more information then.
But the question was what he shared, and I just wanted to be clear what he shared is that we did overspend, but because of financial windfalls, we didn't go into the black. So I just want to be clear about what he has told us.
So this is a good example of why I don't think it's prudent to have a conversation like this yet until we have seen the results of the audit, because we want to make sure that all those statements that we think might be true are actually true or not before we come out and say them. And then we also want to be able to put any of those statements in context. So that is as clear as I think I can be right now, because the reality is we want to wait and figure out if there are any other significant adjustments that need to be made.
Thank you. Thanks. Superintendent Bank.
Can I just tie up this conversation? Because one of the things I know that Director Lavery and I have been looking at in terms of moving forward is, as he said, he's exercised an abundance of caution, because we want to share quality information and accurate information rather than speculate. I could sit here and speculate and say, yeah, you know what, we're going to be great, we're going to be up, and then we might not be as up as we should be, and people say, well, why'd you do that? What happened? What was the difference? So I'd rather have the auditors finish their jobs and then give a full report and say, guess what? This is what's happened. We're fine with giving an update at the Finance Committee in terms of where we are in terms of that process, and we'll be able to give some information around what the workload is happening and trending. The other thing I think you need to factor in as well too is that this is not something that you expedite through just for expedience sake. And we've just hired a new accountant within the last few weeks, and I was in the office and got to see the stack of work that person has been able to do since they've been here, which would have traditionally been done in August or September, right? And so we need to give staff an opportunity to do their work and bring forward some good numbers, because I know that Director Laverly, when I ask him a question around the numbers, I want accurate numbers. I don't want him to tell me, well, this is what we're doing, but then I'd rather him to say, you know what, I'll let you know in a week's time, and have some clear numbers that I can share. So anything I say publicly, I want to be able to be confident that it's been vetted through all the appropriate steps to come forward. So if people have to wait a little bit, I'd rather have that happen than be premature.
Thank you. Appreciate that. I'd like to ask for a motion to approve going into executive session to discuss contract amendments where premature disclosure could put the district at a substantive disadvantage. Commissioner Chino? I'm sorry, excuse me, Commissioner Curry is my advisor here.
I'm not stealing your motion, but first I'd like to make a motion to establish the need to go into executive session, because we need to discuss contractual issues, which if they were discussed in public would put us at a specific disadvantage. So this motion is to establish the need for the executive session.
Is there a second? Commissioner Harrington seconded the motion.
Tell me to vote.
I'm sorry,
There's no discussion.
no discussion.
And then-
Yes, so could I have all those in favor of the motion? Opposed? Unanimous. Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion to enter into executive session to discuss possible contract negotiations where premature disclosure could place the school district at a substantial disadvantage.
Is there a second? Commissioner Judson? All in favor? All opposed? Okay, it's unanimous. Thank you very much. We'll be back. Thank you. We're going to resume our meeting. Is there a motion to reflect our discussion in executive session? Commissioner Curry.
I'd like to make a motion to approve an amendment to the board's contract with Howard Smith that would conclude his services to the district, his contract with the district at August 31st, 2015, and to approve a retainer of $1,000 for transition services covering the month of September.
I'd like to second that amendment.
Second. Any discussion on the amendment? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes unanimously. I see your hand. A lot of my students do that too. I want to just see if there's any other business before I entertain a motion to adjourn. May I get a motion to adjourn?
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Seconded by Commissioner Kirk. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Unanimous. Thank you all for helping me out tonight. I appreciate it.